We have called together the Sunday Roundtable this morning, and joining us are Democratic political analyst Marianne Marsh and Republican political analyst Rob Gray. Guys, great to see you as always. I'm curious, Marianne, let me start with you. Rob, thoughts on Andrew Lelling? What are we looking at here? Obviously, there's a change in administration, so what's the future?
Well, I think it's whatever he wants it to be, and I think it's, for the first time, pretty clear Andrew Lelling would consider going into politics himself for elective office. So he certainly has used his term as U.S. Attorney very well. Nobody's got more coverage. He certainly has raised his profile, but he's got a lot of options going down the road.
Rob, what do you think?
Well, what I saw is this is a U.S. attorney who exercised a lot of common sense, who got beyond the fact that he was appointed by Trump and achieved a position of respect within Democratic Massachusetts. Clearly, he's thinking about running for political office, and with the knack for news that he's shown as U.S. attorney, I think he has a good chance.
So, big victory for Katherine Clark and Massachusetts. The Congresswoman was elected Assistant House Speaker this past week, making her the fourth most powerful person in the U.S. House and the most powerful person from Massachusetts in Congress. And she's clearly now in line to succeed Nancy Pelosi. Her colleagues apparently call her the silent assassin. Hard to believe since we rarely see her without a smile. What are the major takeaways here? Let's start with you, Marianne.
In 7 years, Katherine Clark has gone from a Massachusetts state senator to Assistant Speaker of the House and poised to be the next Speaker of the House. I don't think anyone has had an ascent like that in Massachusetts politics ever in history. She certainly could, and I think likely will, succeed Pelosi. She did it with hard work, lots of smarts. She recruited hundreds of candidates for Congress, won the majority back, raised a ton of money, and corralled votes. That's exactly how you do it, and Katherine Clark still has a lot of history left to make.
Rob, what's your take?
I think she has an excellent chance to be the next speaker, in large part because the top three people in House Democratic leadership are over 80, including Speaker Pelosi. So, you look at that after the midterm election, I think the question is whether Republicans take over the majority, and that denies her being Speaker. They were +9 so far with still 5 races to show, thanks to Nancy Pelosi's defund the police campaign.
Next item, Governor Baker. This week, he nominated the 7th and last justice to the state Supreme Court, District Court Judge Serge George. So if confirmed, along with Delita Wendlandt, all 7 will be Baker appointees. So, Marianne, what is the name of this chapter in the Baker book?
How a Republican governor's like a Democrat. I mean, that's all that is. I mean, he has appointed a court now that looks like Massachusetts and will rule in ways that I think the majority of people in Massachusetts would like. And I think that helps him going into 2022 in many ways, because it's very diverse, very different, and he sees the handwriting on the wall. When you have 1.1 million Trump voters in Massachusetts, you aren't going to win with them any statewide office, so you need to replace them, and he's going to do that by some of these steps, including this court pick.
Rob?
I think the title is TBD, and the reason it's to be determined is it depends on how these judges and the Baker majority, which will exist on the court, rule. The SJC makes extremely important decisions in the role of individuals and businesses in this state. How they rule is how he will be judged.
So is Jim Lyons on his way out? He's the GOP chairman, is the big Trump supporter. He and Charlie Baker don't exactly see eye to eye. State legislator Sean Dooley is going to challenge Lyons, but he also isn't exactly a big Baker booster either. So how can the governor of a state not control his own party, Rob?
Well, I think he may well control it. I think Sean Dooley is actually the Baker preferred candidate as far as I hear. I think he's friendly to the governor. This is a battle to control the financial means of the party, to set up either another Baker run or a run for Lieutenant Governor Karen Polito. The thing is, it's impossible to predict because it comes down to 80 people who are members of the Republican State Committee. They could vote either way. Lyons could well get reelected because there's a lot of support for Trump despite his losing on the Republican State Committee.
But Dooley was quoted as making some derogatory comments about the governor at one point, Marianne.
He was, but I think he'll work with the governor, no question.
Marianne?
Does it matter? I mean, the Republican Party and its state party has been irrelevant. I mean, the only thing it's good for, and Rob touched on it, is the different financial vehicles you can use to raise money and house money for elections. And Baker's been able to do it with and without the party. It's just a place to park money. So he won't have any trouble raising money. He has plenty of places to put it. I don't think it matters.
Next item, it isn't a new way to sneak through legislation on Beacon Hill, but this year amendments that don't directly affect the state budget once again are making their way to the governor's desk. And the biggest example is one that solidifies abortion rights, anticipating changes from Washington. Out of control or necessary? That's the question, Marianne. Let me start with you.
Necessary. I mean, the fact is, any day now, the Supreme Court could curtail women's rights to an abortion and health care, and that is wrong. So unfortunately, it is going to come down to the kind of health care will depend on what state you live in. Massachusetts was smart to move preemptively before the Supreme Court did.
Rob, out of control or necessary?
Well, I don't think it's out of control, but it's also not necessary. I mean, the House and Senate could have gone through the normal legislative process on this particular item and not included non-germane items in a supplemental budget, which is what they're doing here to kind of push it through with tricks, smoke and mirrors a little bit.